Hello. So we're now going to start on the FL 150, which is the income and expense declaration. So this form is required part of the divorce process, but it's also a very frequent form for all types of cases of custody, support, and divorce alike. The income and expense declaration is kind of a versatile form. It's essentially literally what it states. It is what are this person filing, what are their income, and what are their expenses. So this is part of one of the forms during the disclosures process, as you can see on the forms necessary for disclosures on step 2. This is one of the ones. And a lot of times we have the litigant take it home to fill out because it's things only they know, right? Like we don't know where they work. But similarly, they need to get their paycheck stubs. But you may sit down and work with them and maybe at least even highlight it or go over it with them so they know how to fill it out. And if they come in with it partially filled out because they're confused about some of the questions, that's where you guys are going to help out as well, is to clarify those things. So as with all forms, right, we know all the names need to match. Court, stamp, we have that court stamp. We have petition, respondent, and depending on the case type, if it's a child support case, the Department of Child Support Services may be involved. Please keep petitioner, respondent, and other party in the same order that they are listed in the case that we're filing. At this point, we will have a case number. We're typically never filing this without a case number unless they are starting a brand new case for custody and support. All right, so let's go to number 1, employment. So a lot of people get this confused and they leave it blank. They're like, oh, I'm unemployed. It's like, no, that's not what it asks. It says give information on your current job or if you're employed, your most recent job. And if they are unemployed, there's a little spot there that they can actually explain that. So let's say this person is employed, right? They work at Tesla. So Tesla's address, Tesla's phone number, what their occupation is. They're machinist, right? Are they driver, whatever it may be, right? The date, the job that they started, when they started their job, when did they begin working at that? And if they are completely unemployed and they don't have a current job, then on letter F, if unemployed, date job ended. Okay? G is I work about blank hours per week. Now, for the most part, most people are going to be working full-time unless they're in school and doing part-time stuff. Now, how are you going to gauge that? Well, that's up to them, right? They're like, it fluctuates. Well, that's up to them to put what the hours per week is. Is it, maybe is it part-time? Maybe I get, 4 days out of the week. Well, 4 days out of the week, is that 8 hours a day? Is it 4 hours a day? Right? We can't tell them what to put, but you can say, look, you need to put what your best estimate is if it is part-time, and maybe they need to average out what their hours have been in the past, right? For the last 2 months, have you consistently been working 24 hours? Is it 20 hours? I have had people put kind of ranges between here from 20 to 24, but we kind of want to keep it pretty stable. And then H is I get paid blank gross before taxes, whether it's per month, per week, or per hour. A lot of the times we work with people who are working hourly salaries, okay? So it's typically the easiest way to be like, okay, well, what is your hourly salary? And we can put that per hour. Sometimes they get paid per week. Sometimes they get paid per month. What you don't want to do is you don't want to take their bi-weekly paycheck. They're like, here's my last 2 paychecks, right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to just multiply that by 2 and say, that's what your monthly salary is. Because there are certain bi-weekly periods, there are certain months where you get paid 3 times. So I don't know what months they are, but they're typically 2 or 3 months out of the year where there are 3 pay periods. So that wouldn't necessarily be an accurate description. Now, if you absolutely want to do the math on it, I wouldn't recommend it, but you're more than welcome to, right? You can say, well, what is your hourly? So I work $10 an hour, and I work 40 hours a week. All right, so it's 10 times 40, and then you're going to get whatever that is. Thank you. 40 hours a week, and then you're going to multiply that 400 times 52, because there's 52 weeks in a year. Can someone do that for me? Huh? What's that? 2080. 2080, and then you're going to multiply that by 12 months. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, what am I doing? I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's roll that back. What did I miss here? Times 40. What's that? So this is not correct. Okay. 28,000. Okay. Oh, okay. So 28,000, and then you're going to divide that by 12. Okay. Okay, so this person's gross pay period per month is $2,333. Okay? So you'll take their hourly times, if they're full-time, 40 hours per week, and then you'll multiply whatever that rate is times 52 weeks, and then you'll divide that by 12. And that is an average of the gross income per month. Okay. Now again, it's always easy just to put per hour, as you can see, unless you're good at math. But again, huh? So, and again, H is a variable, so you can either do per month, per week, or per hour. And again, it's like, oh, okay, so I get paid $10 per hour. And again, it depends on what you want to do. So I could either do that $10 per hour, or if I know the actual math, I could say 2,333 per month. Yeah. Okay. This is why it's super important, and it's actually right here, and we always highlight it. We need to attach copies of the paycheck stubs for the last 2 months. Now, a lot of people will say, I don't get any paycheck stubs. Maybe they're paid under the table. Maybe they get they're a contractor through Lyft or for Uber. Well, I know for a fact that Uber and Lyft have some sort of pay summaries, so they can go on their app or whatever it is and print those out. If not, they need something stating what their actual income is. If they receive SSI, if they receive some sort of disability, that's fine. We're still putting their last job, but we need to provide some sort of income, and we'll talk about that on the next page. Again, if they have more than one job, I work 2 jobs, right? It's the Bay Area, and it's unsustainable. So they may need to attach another sheet of paper and list another job on there, okay? Age and education, this is pretty self-explanatory. I never, sometimes it's awkward to ask them, do you if you haven't completed high school or not, just say, hey, please fill out the age and education, the highest grade you've completed. Do you have any college? Do you have any, graduate degrees or vocational license? They'll typically know this. Hopefully they will. A lot of people skip over the tax information. I've last filed for taxes in the last tax year. That's the last time that they filed, okay? You'll have people say that they filed back in 2008. And give me one, yes, question. I'm sorry, if they don't know their birth date? I haven't personally encountered that yet, but I think there may be other issues to deal with. I mean, typically on their marriage certificate, they should have some sort of, I think they have their birth dates on there also. If they're employed, it's really tough to say. I don't think I've encountered that yet, but we'll cross that bridge if we ever do get that. Thank you. Yeah. And again, right? We can only put the information that they know. Last filed for taxes, it's when they filed. My tax filing status, it should technically never be single if we're doing this in a divorce. They're technically either doing head of household, married filing separately, or married filing jointly with the other person. Okay? If it is single, it's typically going to be done because they're in a child support case. I file state taxes in California, or if they're in another state, maybe they filed in that state for the previous year. I claim the following number of exemptions, including myself, on my taxes. Now, this isn't something that we can tell them, right? But we always say one is including yourself. So it's always going to be at least one. It's not going to be zero. So if they're just single and they're doing themselves, it's going to be typically one. But if they're married and they claim their spouse, it's going to be themselves and their spouse. If it's themselves and their head of household and they have 2 children, it's themselves plus the 2 children typically, okay? Number 4 is really important. It's the other party's income. I estimate the gross monthly income before taxes of the other party, in this case, to be, and they have to estimate what they believe that the other person's income is. Now they can say, look, I haven't spoken to them in years. And I don't know what they do. Well, they do have to give an estimate, or it's like, I know they were on disability last time, receiving $1,200. Well, they can put that there. It's like, I believe they make $1,200 based on disability last time I talked to them. Or it's like, I know they work at Kaiser as a medical assistant, and I know they make $5,200 a month, and that's based off of what medical assistants make in the Bay Area. I don't know. Okay, they do have to provide something on there. This is especially important on not only divorce cases but child support cases, because if the other party does not fill this out, and they need to make child support orders, they may impute income to say, okay, well, the other person didn't respond. We may go with what you are saying. But they need to provide some sort of reasoning, logical reasoning as to why they are including that as what they believe their income is. And you can always ask them, well, do they have the ability to work a minimum wage if they're not employed? And you can put what that is. Okay. They can always have more space if they want, but typically it'll fit right there. They'll date, print, and sign, but that's not the end of this form. So let's turn to page 2. And page 2, the good news is it's kind of similar to the fee waiver. A lot of these things, not necessarily for the income, but on page 3 is very similar to the fee waiver. But even at the very top of this page, it says, attach copies of your paycheck stubs for the last 2 months and proof of any other income. And then take a copy of your latest federal tax returns to the court hearing, if it's for child support. Number 5 is income. So for average monthly, add up all the income you received in each category in the last 12 months and divide the total by 12. Again, for the most part, there's going to be a lot of zeros on here. And there's one thing that I can't stress enough is don't leave something blank. Okay. If they don't receive something, put a 0 there. I have a lot of people who are always going to put, oh yeah, my salary or wages last month I received $2,800, and it's pretty consistent for a $2,800 average. And then they just leave the rest of the form blank because it's like, oh, I don't receive that. Well, to me, that's ambiguous. You want to at least put something. It's like, do you ever do overtime? No, I don't. Well, then we're going to put a 0 there. Do you receive commissions or bonuses at your job? No, 0, right? But again, we're going based off of what the average monthly is. And again, you can use that formula, multiplying their hourly wage. But again, you never want to tell them what to write. But if you've come to that conclusion that it's like, okay, well, if you work full time, if you want to go ahead and do this calculation to get the average salary of your monthly, then you can use that. But you can also take a look at their paycheck stub and say, okay, for the last 2 months, what did you get last month? It may fluctuate depending on their hours. Again, it may change. If they're receiving public assistance, they're on disability or SSI or general assistance, right? You'll mark that box. They're currently receiving GA, and typically they should have their letter with them saying, we have filled your account with the $1,300 for your GA, whatever it may be. Maybe they're receiving spousal support from this marriage or from a different marriage, okay? Sometimes it's federally taxable as of 2019. We're not typically going to worry about that because we hardly deal with this. I don't think I've ever seen this on an income and expense in my time here. Same thing with spouse support as partner support. for domestic partnerships. If they are already retired and they're no longer working, but they're getting a pension or a retirement, maybe it's from their 401k, maybe it's they're a public servant and they are receiving a pension like a CalPERS or a CalSTRS account, and they're being paid out monthly, they're going to be putting that there. Typically, they should provide some sort of receipt that they're getting that. Social Security retirement, not SSI. So this is after they have retired and they are now receiving that Social Security. And then we go to disability, right? Maybe it is Social Security disability, but not SSI. Maybe it's a state disability, or maybe they have their own private insurance, like Chesapeake Bay is one I've heard of, where if they get injured on the job, they pay out a certain amount. Maybe they're receiving that as income. Maybe they're getting unemployment compensation, or maybe they're getting workers' comp. A lot of times, other military allowances, royalty payments. There is a humorous time where I had someone, he was a artist on Google Play, and he literally put $5 there last month, but he cautiously wrote, "I am not very popular." But he was as honest as possible, and he got income from royalties from his music that he played. So again, you want to ask if they're receiving anything like that. Again, we don't typically deal with a lot of like rich athletes or artists or musicians, but military allowances, royalty payments, anything else that potentially constitutes. Same thing with investment incomes. If they have dividends or rental property, if they are renting out an apartment and they are receiving income from that or from a trust account, again, we're typically never seeing this because we don't, otherwise they probably should get an attorney. Number 7, we do see frequently though, income from self-employment after business expenses for all businesses. Sometimes we have a lot of people who are, we have barbers, salons, we have landscaping services, we have Uber, Lyft, we have sometimes chefs, we have dancers. So there's a lot of self-employment that we have. And a lot of times they're going to have to provide some sort of other evidence other than just like their bank statements. So income from all self-employment after business. Are they the owner of the job? Are they a business partner? A lot of times what I've seen, if they're through Uber or Lyft, we've done other, and they're a contractor, whatever it may be, right? Number of years in business. How long have they been in business as a contractor or as that business owner? What is the name of the business, and what type of business is it? And again, because this is a little different, they're going to need to attach something called a profit and loss statement for the last 2 years, or a Schedule C from their last federal tax return. Okay, because there's no real way to track it. They don't get a paycheck stub or anything like that. It may be very difficult for them, and this may not even be something that our office can assist with because of that business. But again, number 8, additional income. I received a one-time money, whether it's a lottery winning or an inheritance in the last 12 months. It's pretty self-explanatory. Number 9, we also use very frequently, a change in income. And this is something that you can use on look at page 1 for. It says, my financial situation has changed significantly over the last 12 months. And you maybe want to ask them, okay, well, I see as of April 2019, you became unemployed. I mean, that's a change in income. Maybe you say, okay, well, you switched jobs. Are you making more money? Are you making less money? Just talk to them about it. Maybe they became injured on the job. Maybe they had another child and had to go on maternity or paternity leave, right? Number 10, deductions. And so the good news is we can't really go over this unless we really have their paycheck stubs or we're taking their word for it, right? Required union dues, it's typically on the paycheck stub, and this is for a month, right? Required retirement payments. So Social Security, unfortunately, is not a required retirement payments. FICA, 401k, or an IRA. Those the latter 3 are voluntary. However, something like a pension that is typically required, and it'll usually state and talk to the staff member that you're working with and be like, hey, they have a retirement here. I don't know if it's a required retirement payment. Just check with us. Medical, hospital, and dental. Right, you can easily check on their paycheck. What are they getting charged for their medical or their dental? If they're getting deducted from their paycheck, their wages are being garnished. Child support that you pay for another relationship, or spousal support, or partner support. It's rare that I see G for necessary job-related expenses not reimbursed by my employer. I've typically seen like nurses use that for like scrubs or any sort of clothing, or construction workers who have like boots and protective wear that they need to get. Assets. This is always kind of a weird question to ask them. It's like how much cash in checking accounts and savings accounts? How much total do you have? That's totally up to them, what they want to put there. If they have any stocks, bonds, or other assets they could easily sell. And if they have any other property, whether it's real or personal property, like maybe they want to count their car, again, that's totally up to them what they want to put. All right, 3. And this one's kind of similar, again, to the fee waiver, so we're not going to spend too much time with it. The following people live with me, right? Who live with me, whether they depend on me or I depend on them. So name, age, how they're related, whether it's my son, daughter, my sister, whatever it may be. That person's gross monthly income, and ask, do they pay some of the household expenses? Average monthly expenses, we always do an estimated one, because if we did actual, you'd probably have to provide receipts. But again, prices fluctuate so much that it's almost impossible to do actual expenses. And then proposed needs. We never use proposed needs. This is typically if someone's asking for a large amount of spousal support or child support, and they're explaining, here's everything I need for my child, but we never do that. We say, what are the estimated expenses that you incur on a monthly basis? Home, right? Is it a rent or a mortgage? If it is a mortgage, they should know what the principal and interest are, if they have to pay property taxes, and homeowners or renters insurance, and how much they pay on maintenance and repair. Letter B, healthcare costs not paid for by insurance, right? So their copays, their doctor's visits, their medications, their prescriptions, anything like that that isn't covered by their insurance that they have to pay out of pocket, whether it's for themselves or for their children. Child care. Now, child care isn't it's someone who's taking care of your child for you, whether it's a professional babysitter, your friend or family member just babysitting. I mean, that is some sort of child care. That's not necessarily like diapers and food and stuff. That's strictly someone taking care of your child. Groceries and household supplies for yourself and for your child if there is a minor child. How much you spend eating out to restaurants. Utilities, so it's going to be for gas, electric, water, and trash. Now, a lot of times, some of those things are broken up. Sometimes they'll have gas and electric, but their water and trash is separate. You kind of want to just bundle that all together. Telephone, cell phone, and email. Now, email's kind of outdated. I have put people's like Comcast or internet bill. It's typically frequent. Laundry and cleaning. It may be very difficult if they're not going to a laundromat and they're just paying for like Tide Pods or something. Clothes, education, right? Entertainments, gifts, and vacation. These are all average on a monthly, and for the most part, it may be zero, and it may be very limited what they have, because they're like, I can't do any of these things. That's why I'm applying for child support, or that's why I don't have an attorney. Auto expenses, transportation. So we're talking about insurance, gas, and repairs for their car or for BART. If they have multiple BART fees, or they have bus, muni, whatever it is. And then the insurance here, it's not talking about their car insurance or house insurance. They're strictly talking about life and accident insurance. If they did have like a 401k or a FICA or an IRA, they would put that into savings and investments. That is a investment that they're voluntarily putting into. Charitable contributions, if they started donating to the Red Arm, the Red Cross, yeah. Salvation Army, I mixed up it's also red, apologies. Monthly payments listed in 14. So this is really important, because this is where they would put all their credit cards, any sort of medical bills, any sort of installment payments. So How would I do this? Well, for installment payments, I would do, maybe to Chase, and it's for a Freedom credit card, right? I pay about $80 a month, whatever. And the balance is maybe $500. What the heck? And the date of the last payment, let's just say it was, August 1st of 2019. Okay? And then I also have a Kaiser medical bill. Let's just say that. And then medical bill. And let's just say it's $100 a month at $3,000. And I last paid that September 1st of 2019. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the amounts here, so 80 and 100, and I'm going to add it into here. So you're going to itemize all of the 14s, so it'd be 180, okay? And then anything else, like other, if it's not listed on here. And so total expenses, now it seems confusing because it says A to Q, but do not add the amounts in A1A and A1B. What that's saying is do not add in these amounts right here, okay? So don't add the average principal and the interest. You're still adding the total here as well as all of this and all of these to right there. And so amount of expenses paid by others, again, that's where that comes up at the very top. Does this person pay some of the household expenses? And if they do, because one of the things is especially for child support, they're going to say, okay, we see that your income is $1,300 a month, but you have expenses of $3,300. And I think we kind of talked about this during the fee waiver, especially if they're asking for any sort of support. They're going to be wondering, how are you affording $3,300 a month on average? And they may have a legitimate answer. I'm living on credit cards. I'm pulling from my savings. But they just need to include that somewhere. But other than that, I mean, these are questions that the judge is going to ask. All right. And then the last page. Now, the good news is they don't have any minor children. They're literally just going to put number of children. I have 0 children under the age of 18 with the other parent in this case, and they can do 0. However, that doesn't necessarily preclude them from filling out the rest of the form, especially if this is a request for spouse support. They may need to put, well, I have other children from other relationships, but let's say they do have a minor child. I have 1 child under the age of 18 with the other parent. The children spend blank % of time with me and blank % of time with the other parent. Again, if they don't necessarily know what the exact percentage of timeshare is, they can just kind of write it out. Say, other parent has every Friday to Sunday from 8 a.m. Friday to 8 p.m. Sunday. 17, children's health care expenses. I do or do not have health care or health insurance available to me for the children through my job. The question is not, do I have health care through my job that is that my children are on? It's asking, is it available to me? And so if it is available to them, they'll need to list that out. And it says the monthly cost of the health care insurance is or would be, and they say, yeah, it's available to me, but the children are currently on Medi-Cal. They can write that, okay? Because maybe their income is $1,300 a month, and yeah, health insurance is offered, but it's $600 a month, and that's just not feasible. Number 18, additional expenses for the children in this case. Maybe they have to pay more money for childcare so they can get to their job, or training if their other children's health care not covered by insurance, travel expenses for visitation. I've had this actually come up recently where the person was traveling from Seattle back and forth, and those tickets added up, and he came every week. So, yeah, those travel expenses add up. So potentially a child support order may be adjusted based on that. Or children's educational or other special needs. Maybe if they need some sort of special training or they need other medical help that, is just an exorbitant expense. special hardships, I asked the court to consider the following: extraordinary health expenses. Maybe someone had gotten into a really bad accident and they can no longer work, and now their arm is broken. Maybe they were diagnosed with a terminal illness. Maybe their child got into a bad accident. B, major losses not covered by insurance. If there was a fire, if they were a theft. We had a lot of fires last year and this year. Expenses for my minor children who are from other relationships and are living with me. This is really important too, because that may be a factor in calculating child support. If they have 3 other children that they're caring for and have sole custody of, or not necessarily even sole custody, who live with them though, and they're taking care of them, they may want to list them out here and say, look, I spend for these kids too. Now, I'm not justifying the fact that they're taking care of these kids and not the other, but that is a calculation in some of the support stuff. They can explain how all that stuff creates an extreme financial hardship, and if there's any other information they want to provide to the court right there. What I've had put right here is people who don't have a bank account, and they're like, look, I get paid hourly, I clean houses, I don't have a bank account, I just get paid cash. I have a letter from my boss who says that they pay me this much per hour. Please see the attached. Okay. Yes. That's a good question. The question is during the disclosures phase of the divorce, there is an opportunity to write C, the FL-160s, as in check the FL-160s to see what my assets are. Let staff decide that if it's typically in disclosures, we will have that. If it's for a child support or any sort of motion in a custody case, we typically would not do that.